talk about the remainder of the schedule. We have 6 games left in the regular season, half the regular season, no more bye weeks left, 6 straight games. And I don't have the actual schedule pulled up, but let's see if I can
I've got
remember
it.
it from memory. Home game, Nebraska,
Yes.
first up. Then we have an away game
Penn State.
against
Penn
Penn
State.
State. Home, is it back to home or away?
A home.
Home against Purdue.
Yep.
Away at Northwestern, which is in Chicago and Wrigley Field. Last 2 are
Terrible place
home.
for a football game.
Terrible. Absolute terrible. Indiana, and then the team up north. Let's rank these from 6th hardest to the hardest remaining game on the schedule. So the easiest to hardest, beginning with the 6th. Who wants to go first?
I'll
All right.
go first.
Chris, then Cory, then me. Your easiest game, starting at number 6.
Easiest, number 6, Purdue.
Why do you say that?
Well, I would have said it would have been Northwestern, perhaps, but Northwestern is actually on the road at a stupid field at Wrigley. I don't like that setting. I think that setting can cause issues. Remember what happened the last time we went and played Northwestern on the road, Eric?
14-7 in the wind bowl, I think it was.
What was it? 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts?
Yeah, I don't like playing on Wrigley Field. I think the turf is going to be bad.
Yeah, I agree. So that's why I went with Purdue as the easiest.
There's no argument here. It's Purdue. I don't even know how you debate it. It's Purdue at home. Yeah, it's Purdue.
I wish Dylan was here tonight. That would be fun. I don't know that Ryan Walters is even going to be the head coach when we play them.
And I feel bad for him because I think he's a good coach.
You know what? I think him on the market as a defensive coordinator next year is someone's going to swoop him up. He's a phenomenal defensive coach, but he just ran into some really bad luck. Do I have to be the one to say it? Yeah, go for it.
Tell you what, if Jim Knowles doesn't get his crap together, I got a home for him.
Oh my goodness. Dylan said he's going with the Northwestern game as the easiest. You know, you know what? And there's a debate for that because Purdue has played spoiler to us multiple times.
On the road.
Yeah, once at home, I think, under Tressel.
I don't think so.
I think once. I think they beat us at home once.
No, they did. They gave us a real good game at home one time. I remember that vividly. It was like 16-13 we won or something along those lines. That was a frustrating game.
All right, so we all agree it's Purdue. Number 5, Chris.
Northwestern.
Yeah, it's Northwestern.
They're just not talented.
I do agree with you guys on the field. I hate playing on that field. I think it'll be a closer game than what it probably would be the spread, but because of that stupid field. But we're far more talented, obviously.
Okay. It's Northwestern, but this will be the first time we play Northwestern without Patty Fitz at head coach. So I'm interested in that aspect of it. Northwestern plays they're Northwestern. Like, they're going to give you 110%. They're scrappy. They do not match up with you athletic-wise. This should not be a close game. We should have this thing in the bag at halftime and the starters out, and we should be playing our backups. But for some reason, it'll be a close game for God knows why, and we'll be frustrated as we could be because it's Northwestern. That's seems to be how you. And you're right. You're right, Mean Green. It's them silly cats. That's what they are, man. So we all agree. Number 5 is Northwestern. Number 4.
Man, this one's tough for me. Yeah. This one actually is tough because if you had to go solely based on the talent, I almost want to take that team up north, but that's a rivalry game, so I'm not going to do it.
You can't put them here.
I'm going to take Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going Nebraska as well. After the spanking Indiana just put on them, got to go Nebraska.
Dylan Raiola looked really good this year until the last couple weeks. He's been a freshman.
But he's got a bright future. You can tell.
Obviously. Oh yeah, he can sling it. You've got to get pressure on Dylan Raiola. There's no reason.
We don't do that here. Okay.
I know. But we need to start this week on learning how to get to the quarterback.
I think it's.
I'm telling you right now, Cory. If we don't get pressure on him, he's going to score on us.
He's going to throw for 300 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. If we
I agree.
They have a mismatch on our defense. That tight end is a stud.
Yes.
And I don't think we have a linebacker who can cover him.
It'll be interesting. I agree. I mean, this is the come to Jesus game for the for Knowles and Larry Johnson. I mean, you got a guy who's not a dual threat at all, and he's a really solid pocket passer with a great arm. You're right, and he's not a downfield thrower. He's 7.5 yards per average. I mean, the tight end's really good. I agree with all that. The offensive line will get about 2 sacks a game, but come on, guys. This is the time you got to whatever synergy you guys need. Get it together and get to the quarterback.
I agree. Nebraska is number 4. All right, top 3. Number 3, Chris.
You know, I want to throw out the records, but I can't. Michigan's got to go in here. They just are not a good football team. I think this is a football team that could very well be looking at losing 6 games this season. If you look at the remaining schedule, I think they legitimately are going to lose 6 games.
Jordan's in the chat. Jordan, take off your maize and blue glasses for a second. Serious question. What's your final record, in your opinion? If you had to predict your final record for your team, let me know. Because I'm going to disagree completely with you, Chris, and I'll explain why when we get there. Cory, number 3.
Indiana. I think Penn State's always tough, especially on the road. We got Indiana at home. Yes, they're really good. Yes, it's going to be a challenge. And I can't, in good conscience, put them above the team up north. I have seen years where we should blow that team out with ease, and it ends up being a really close game. I'm talking about the team up north, the rivalry game. I can't ever count them out because I know they're terrible. I know that, but this game is spooky, weird. You just never know what's going to happen with it. So I go with Indiana. By default, I go with Indiana, even though I know they're a good team.
I actually am going to agree with you, Cory. I have the Hoosiers at number 3. Now, there was a debate on JR's podcast last night where they were doing their power rankings, and Big Ten Kent put Indiana number 1 in his power rankings.
I'm crying out loud.
And that fan base on this live show, those Indiana fans you would have thought these guys have had a power program in football for decades, the way they were talking. I know Cignetti's a good coach, much better than I thought he was going to be, much more creative. I still don't think they've gone up against a true Big Ten power and been smacked in the mouth yet. That's coming. That's coming. And we'll see where they're at by game number 11. If they're 10-0 going into that game, then my hat's off. They're better than I think they are. But we'll see. 7-0, that's nothing to sniff at. Fastest, this is the best start they've had since like 1968, I think it was. And I'm pretty sure in the 60s they only played 10 games. So this is probably the best Indiana team we've seen in my lifetime, easily. And the longest win streak in college football currently in a conference is Ohio State's over Indiana. So we need to keep that bad boy going. Indiana's number 3 for me. Interesting on that one. Yeah, Bobby McCormick. You know, Indiana's turning out to be who Chris and I thought Rutgers was going to be.
Yeah.
Rutgers is on a bad slide. They've lost 3 in a row, and they aren't who they started out being. But Indiana is. Okay, number 2, Chris.
I'm going to take Indiana here.
Okay.
Believe me, I thought about putting them number 1 just because with Penn State, I feel like we know who Penn State is. But I'm going to go Indiana. like you said, they haven't played a Big Ten powerhouse yet. This is the prove it game. This is the one where Signetti has to. I think there's more pressure on Signetti. Oddly enough, I mean, even though all the pressure's on Ryan Day, I think the pressure's at least equal with Signetti because he went out and ran his mouth at the beginning of the season, and to this point, he's shown everything to back it up. So I think there's just as much pressure on Signetti as there is Ryan Day in this game. Not that they're going to run him out to Indiana if he only wins 11 games this season, But no, I like Indiana here. I think they're a pretty good team. I think they're a solid team. I think they're, like I said, I think they're a more talented team than Michigan this year. So give me Indiana too.
I'm fighting here.
I know it's that whole thing of Penn State, James Franklin is who James Franklin is, and that makes you want to put Penn State at number 2. It did me too.
I'm going with TTUN number 2. I almost put them at number 1 for one sole reason. I know they're terrible, but one sole reason: Ryan Day has all the pressure in the world to win that game. I mean, my goodness, he has to win that game, but he really can't. He can't slip up at all from here on out. He can't.
Yeah.
So Penn State is the tougher team, and we're going to Happy Valley, whereas TTUN is terrible, and we got them at home. That's what gives Penn State the edge for number 1, TTUN number 2. And I only put them at number 2 because it's the rivalry game. If it was just another team, another year, I'd say, well, man, they're probably 6th or 5th or whatever. But I just never know what's going to happen in that game. You just never know about emotions and how things happen. Becomes their Super Bowl. Those guys who just won a natty. Why we want to leave on a note of beating Ohio State or whatever because they have a terrible year. I mean, you never know how those things play out. So I will go with them number 2 and obviously you know what's going to be number 1, but.
Number 2 for me is Penn State. If the Penn State game was a whiteout at night, I can be convinced to put them number 1. But Happy Valley at noon is a lot like Columbus, Ohio at noon. It's a sleepy stadium. And
is that game at noon? I know it's not a whiteout at night, but is it noon or is it 3:30?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be.
I think it's going to be a big noon kickoff.
Oh wow!
I think
good for
Fox.
Us.
I think Fox owns the rights to that one, and it's not been announced yet because I think Fox is waiting to see just in case there's a better game. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be a big.
I don't know how there's going to be a better game. My goodness.
Yeah, there's not been exactly right, especially if it's 2 versus 3.
Yeah.
Or 2 versus 4, however
and Ryan Day gets an opportunity to up that top 5 win percentage, hopefully.
Which means we're down to number 1, Chris.
I've got Penn State there. I do think of the the 6 teams left on the schedule, they are the best, the most talented, with possibly the least talented coach that Ohio State will face the rest of the year. So I'm going to go Penn State there just because it is at Happy Valley. They've got a lot to play for. And honestly, I just feel like, I can understand people wanting to slide Michigan in there, and I understand the history. Believe me, nobody understands the history better than I do of no matter how good Coop's teams were, an average Michigan team would come in and beat them. But I think that Ryan Day knows he's coaching for his job in this one, especially following that Oregon loss. He knows he can't slip up again this year. I think Penn State's the tougher contest.
I absolutely agree. Number 1's Penn State for me. I said it in the other clip, but I mean, yeah, and I agree. Chris Franklin is a snake oil salesman. He's such an overrated coach. I mean, I've seen lists that rate him higher than Ryan Day, and I'm like, look, Ryan Day ain't exactly on my happy list right now, but he's not as good as Ryan Day. But if I think he's always been an average coach, and he's a decent recruiter who gets solid talent there. And it's just a tough place to play. I know it's not white out at night. It's not even close, but still going on the road against a talented team with a lot to play for, it's going to be a really tough game.
Yeah, Dennis, we know they haven't announced the time for the Penn State game yet. We are guessing it's going to be big noon kickoff because I'm pretty sure Fox owns the right to choose that game first that day, and they're going to choose that one. I wish, in my opinion, that game should be the last game in the month of October at 7:30 every single year. That's the way it used to be, and it was a great rivalry, and it should be that way.
But that should have been a protected rivalry too, Eric. But
I agree. Yeah, Mika. They also have a great tight end.
They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, and it will always be number one until it returns to the way it was at the end during Tressel and Urban. It's going to be the game. I don't care if they're 6-6 or 5-6 going into that game, or 6-5 or 7 and whatever, 4 at the time. Until Ryan Day can do it with his players, I can't help but feel like their helmet's in his head.
Eric,
I know they're bad.
He doesn't have a choice but to do it this year with his players.
I know.
He doesn't have a choice. There's not going to be another opportunity if he doesn't.
That's why it's number one, Chris. He doesn't have a choice. He has to win it. He has to. I understand that. That's why it's number one. He cannot lose that game.
He can't lose any game left on the schedule, Eric.
Well, yeah, but every team up on the schedule up until that game, he's already beat. He's, multiple. He's never lost to him. He's never lost to Penn State, never lost to Indiana, never lost to Nebraska, never lost to Northwestern. He's beat them all. One time he beat that team up north was 2019, his first year as head coach.
With Urban's team.
Exactly.
Well, at least with his own quarterback, I'll give him that. But
he did have his own quarterback, but it was Urban's team.
No, I'm not denying that. That was clearly
with tremendous defense, by the way, too.
And you know what? You look back, and I broke it down a little bit today. As I was arguing with someone about Ryan Day's ineptitude versus top 5 teams. Ryan Day's top 5 wins, one of them came as a questionable number 5 against a questionable number 5 Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The other came with Ryan Day's team against Clemson. And honestly, he really should have had another top 5 loss because the coaches poll had TTU in at number 5 and the AP poll had him at number 6 in the ranking back in 2021, I think it was. So I mean, yeah.
You ask any Buckeye fan at this point. Of course, we want to go 6-0 in these last 6 games. Of course, we expect to go 6-0 in these last games. If we go 5-1, that one cannot be against them. It cannot be.
If they go 5-1, you kick his backside to the curb as soon as that one hits. I don't care where it's at in the last 6.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. It's funny when those situations. I agree with both of you. Yeah, if he gets, let's say he gets to 5-0 and then he gets to the last one, I agree though. If he loses any of these games, he's kind of done because he's not going to make the Big Ten title game, and so no Big Ten title unless there's some chaos where a couple teams lose 2-3 games. But but if we get to a situation where he loses one game, like let's say Penn State or something like that, and he still has a shot at the Big Ten title, then I absolutely go into what Eric is saying. You absolutely cannot lose to Michigan at all, no matter what. But that's the hole he's dug for himself. You got to start. You got to win championships at Ohio State, and he's not doing it.